Hello and welcome to EllieMD's live educational series. We are so glad you're joining us as we continue our mission to help people live healthier, longer lives. At EllieMD, we're more than a telehealth platform. We're a growing community rooted in education, innovation, and whole body support. Today, we're excited to welcome Briar Aranas, the founder and creator of FITTBRA, a virtual nutrition counseling company she launched in 2016 with a mission to provide custom whole food-based nutrition plans tailored to each client's goal. FITTBRA has grown from a solo endeavor into a thriving team of certified nutritionists and a registered dietitian serving clients across the United States. As a certified nutrition coach through NASM with specialized credentials in weight management, sports and fitness nutrition, and wellness coaching, Briar brings over a decade of experience helping thousands of clients achieve lasting results. She's built her business on accountability, real life strategies, and sustainable education, creating a reputation of trust and results. Beyond her professional work, Briar is a proud veteran wife and mom of two, balancing family life and entrepreneurship with passion and purpose. Her mission is to empower people to feel confident, strong, and in control. Well, thank you for all of that, Briar. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
I love that you're passionate about this topic and nutrition. It's something that we need to start touching on. We have a lot of members in our community that are now on GLP-1s. They're looking for nutrition guidance. So we need individuals such as yourself to help people navigate through this journey. Before we get started, why don't you tell us a little about your background and what got you so excited and curious about health and nutrition?
Yeah, it really all started back when I was in high school. I was on the dance team. I was really passionate about nutrition and health and fitness, but it really didn't take off until I got pregnant with my son. Um, I was basically engulfed in research and wanting to learn how to not only keep my body healthy, but for me, but for my baby. And then it just spiraled from there into a community passion project, and then FITTBRA's exploded since then.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love the word spiral in this particular case. It's a positive spiral. I like
Exactly.
it's interesting when people think about weight loss, their goal is the numbers on the scale going down. But no, your focus is on fat loss because that's far more important, as you state. So, can you shed some light on what is fat loss, why is it important, and what's actually happening in the body when we're losing fat?
Absolutely. Okay, so before I get into it, let's take a quick poll. Who here has ever wished fat loss worked like Amazon Prime? Right? You click 20 pounds and boom, 2 days later, it's on your doorstep. Right? I'm sure we all can agree that we wish that our body had that fancy shipping option. But instead, our body is messy and complex and sometimes frustrating. It's a process that feels like one step forward and two steps back all the time. But here's the thing, when you understand how fat loss actually works, it stops feeling like guesswork and it becomes strategy. And then when we combine these strategies with tools like GLP-1s, GIPs, and peptides, suddenly clients don't just lose weight, they transform their health. So let's clear up a couple of myths, right? So fat doesn't just magically melt and it doesn't turn into muscle. So here's what actually happens in the body. Fat is stored in adipose tissue cells as triglycerides. And when you're in a caloric deficit, hormones signal those cells to release fatty acids and glycerol into the bloodstream. From there, those fatty acids get transported to the mitochondria. Think of them as like your body's like power plants. So inside the mitochondria, the fatty acids are oxidized and turned into energy. And here's the fun fact. 84% of the fat you actually lose leaves the body as carbon dioxide. So you breathe it out. The other 16% leaves as water through urine, sweat, and yes, the tears you shed when cardio gets a little too real. So Why is that important to understand? Because it takes fat loss out of the land of the mystery and into the world of biology, right? You eat strategically, you move consistently, and your body has no choice but to use fat as fuel.
I love that. And fat is very important. I love that we're focusing on fat loss instead. I had a bariatric surgeon friend once tell me, he goes, "Do you know why the obesity rate has increased since the 70s and 80s and why people are getting fatter in America?" And I was like, "Well, of course, we're eating more." And he goes, "No, no, no, you can't really say that the portions have increased." And I was like, "Well, we're leading more sedentary lifestyles." And some of you may have heard me tell this story before. And he goes, "Not really. I mean, it hasn't significantly and drastically changed since the 70s." And I was like, he goes, "Well, what's the functionality of fat cells in your body?" And I was like, "Well, of course, energy, shock absorption." And he goes, "The third biggest one is removing toxins out of your body, right?" So as we're bombarding our bodies with more and more toxins because of the foods and Monsanto and Monsanto and all these genetically engineered and modified foods that are still absorbing all the toxins, these seeds that are absorbing toxins, and our bodies are getting bigger, and these fat cells, we're only born with a certain number, right? They're just getting bigger and bigger. So I love that we're talking about fat because when we talk about losing fat, it's not just getting thinner, it's also eliminating all the toxins out of our body and eating in a way that optimizes our body to eliminate toxins, burn energy better, and fats metabolically. So I love this topic. I'm very passionate about it. I love talking about peptides that help with fat loss. But before we really do a deep dive, why don't we talk about the role that nutrition plays. Why is whole food based nutrition more effective for long-term fat loss than restrictive diets?
So restrictive diets work like crash courses, right? They burn people out. So whole food based nutrition fuels the body instead of fighting it. And when clients eat real foods like lean proteins, veggies, fruit, healthy fats, and quality carbs, they get fiber and micronutrients. And that means less hunger, fewer cravings, and more energy throughout the day. Restrictive diets usually end with somebody raiding the pantry at midnight. Whole foods build habits people can sustain for life.
Okay, so when you talk whole foods, talk to me. What do you
Yeah.
consider whole foods versus not whole foods?
So, like, we're talking, oats, quinoa, rice, chicken, beef, um, things that are not necessarily not genetically engineered and contain a bunch of processed ingredients. So your vegetables, your fruits, and yeah, lots of lean protein. Protein is definitely key.
That's good to know, especially as an ex-fat girl who I was at 235 pounds. I was taught that carbohydrates are bad, eating food is bad, but now I'm realizing no, you actually have to nourish your body if you want to lose the weight and want to
Exactly.
burn the fat. Um, so with that, actually, let's talk about what role timing your meal plays in fat loss. Can you talk to us about that, like intermittent fasting and all sorts of things, timing your meals?
Yeah. So I actually love this question. So, for most people, meal timing matters a lot less than they think. The real driver of fat loss is being in a caloric deficit, period. That said, when you eat your carbs can make a big difference. Carbs around workouts are ideal because they're what we call protein sparing. That means your body can use carbs as immediate fuel, which helps protect muscle tissue from being broken down for energy. Since muscle is your metabolic engine, sparing it is key during a fat loss phase. Carbs pre workout improve performance, and carbs post workout help with recovery and glycogen replenishment. Now, about intermittent fasting, it's not magic. The reason it works is, for some people, is it simply just shortens the eating window, which often makes it easier to eat fewer calories without thinking too hard about it. For some clients, that structure is freeing, but for others, it does feel like punishment. So skipping breakfast doesn't suddenly turn you into a fat burning machine. It actually just makes you someone who's cranky until lunch. Where fasting does get interesting is in extended fasts. So 24 hours or more. That's where we start to see benefits like deeper autophagy, like cellular cleanup, improvements in insulin sensitivity and gut rest. But those benefits aren't about daily fat loss, they're more about long term metabolic health. So, meal timing and fasting are tools in the toolbox, but they're not the hammer that gets the nail, in the actual box itself. The foundation is always consistent nutrition, a caloric deficit, and protecting lean muscle.
Okay, so I've heard this, and I don't know if anyone's read Tim Ferriss's 4 Hour Body. I love the slow carb diet, and he talks about um, his or clients or individuals who eat first thing in the morning have and higher protein, fatty containing foods lose more weight in the long run. What is your opinion of that? Of
Yeah,
eating?
I think first thing in the morning, we need to give our body that energy. We've already fasted for 8 hours for sleeping, right? So being able to provide your body a healthy source of protein and fat first thing in the morning helps to sustain your body for longer for during the day, right? Carbohydrates, our body is not, our cells are not made up of carbs, but our cells do contain protein and fats. So we need to be able to provide those nutrients to our body. I do think very first thing in the morning, whether it's, 15 to 30 grams, depending on if you are somebody who is active or not, starting the day off with about 15 to 30 grams of protein and then paired with a healthy fat is definitely necessary.
Okay, so what's one simple thing that we can do to make our progress go faster? If we're trying to lose fat, not weight, if we're trying to lose and optimize for fat, what's something that we can do to optimize or increase our progress?
So one of the simplest shifts anyone can make is count ingredients, not just calories. So, like you were talking about earlier, for decades the food industry has trained us, sorry, um, and we've been obsessing over calories for decades. And that was a really brilliant move on the marketing part of the food industry because while everyone was watching the calorie numbers, the companies quietly shifted from whole recognizable ingredients to chemicals and additives. And like you said before, those are packed full of chemicals, right? Those are toxins that our body actually holds on to. And so these chemicals don't just quietly sit in our body, they spark hunger, they drive inflammation, they mess with hormones, they make it harder to actually stop eating. Have you ever wondered why you can polish off a whole bag of chips, but struggle to overeat chicken and broccoli? That's actually by design. So the rule is simple. If you can't pronounce it, if you can't, if you wouldn't stock it in your own kitchen, if it sounds like it belongs in a chemistry set, it doesn't belong in your daily diet. And when you shift back to eating whole, recognizable foods, hunger goes down, energy goes up, and fat loss becomes a lot easier without feeling like you're in a constant battle with willpower. So, whole, recognizable ingredients paired with timing your carbohydrates. So, timing those carbs, either if you're a very sedentary person, have them in the beginning of the day because that's when your body is going to need that energy versus having them towards the end of the day, right when our body is kind of in that storage mode for going to bed. So those carbs are going to serve you better at the beginning, or again, bookend around your workout. So pre-workout, post-workout, versus sitting on the couch binging Netflix and digging into overeating cookies or a bag of chips or not paying attention to how much popcorn we're eating.
Well, what is your recommendation on daily carbohydrate? How many grams of carbohydrates and protein and fiber? What is your daily recommendation?
So generally for women, it's around 30 to 35 grams of fiber every single day. For men, they can stand a little bit more, around 35 to 40 grams of fiber. As far as for protein, for weight loss, or if your goal is to lose weight, it's anywhere from zero point 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per goal body weight. Um, and this all changes, right, when depending on your goal. If your goal is weight loss, my recommendation would be one thing. If your goal is fitness nutrition, my recommendation would be something totally different. As far as grams of carbs, that one is probably the hardest to answer because it does depend on your activity levels. Sometimes it also depends on medications. If you're on like hard medications like neurotropic drugs, sometimes you do need a little more heavier carbs or more carbs in your system to be able to for your body to process those meds. um, but you know a safe recommendation as far as with carbs would probably be anywhere from, oh gosh, this one's a hard one just because again it really depends. If your goal is weight loss, I would say maybe 100 to 150 grams of carbs per day. But remember, carbohydrates is not just complex carbs like your grains. It's also your vegetables and your fruits as well. Those are in the carbohydrate, macronutrient category. If your goal is performance or fitness nutrition, you're actually going to be getting a lot more carbs because your body is going to need that for energy.
Wonderful. Thank you for that information. So now shifting beyond nutrition and food, let's talk about lifestyle habits. What are some typical lifestyle habits that are overlooked when it comes to fat loss?
Yeah. So most people only focus on food and workouts, but the real secret weapons are hydration, NEAT, and recovery. So staying hydrated flushes out water retention. NEAT is an acronym that stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this us taking steps, fidgeting, standing, walking after meals, or talking with your hands during an education series, right? All of these actually burn more calories than the gym workouts that we typically do. And then, of course, recovery, sleep and rest. That's where our body actually adapts, and without it, fat stalls or fat loss stalls.
And are there exercises or anything that we can do to optimize for fat loss? Is it cardio? Is it muscle? Is it resistance? What do you recommend?
Resistance training. So any type of resistance training, it doesn't even have to be heavy lifting weights. You could use resistance band, you can use your body weight, something like Pilates or yoga, that definitely utilizes our core strength and our full body weight. But resistance training is going to get you so much further than cardio. People put so much emphasis on cardio, but it definitely helps to burns calories, but it's not going to help change your entire body composition. Putting too much emphasis on cardio can help with weight loss, but a lot of the times if we're not prioritizing building muscle mass, then yeah, you'll lose weight, but oftentimes you'll get a softer looking version of the same body where we want to make sure that we are protecting our muscle mass.
That's very good information to know. It was interesting. Last week we were in the Dominican Republic as part of our incentive trip, and there was a lot of ladies that were downstairs, weightlifting and weight training, and there was a group that were doing the yoga. I loved that our community was so active and on vacation. Everybody got up in the morning and did workout. But Latoya Moody, she's a professional bodybuilder, and I was like, Latoya, what's one advice you would give individuals to help get lean and burn fat and look as great as you? And she said, ladies, eat more and lift heavy. Like you got to do that. And I think it's just a misconception. We've been taught, I came from that school where it's like get on the treadmill, but it seems like you burn more fat if you're weight training, right? And you're
Yeah,
lifting.
you actually do because you're Muscle is metabolism. So the more muscle you have, the more your metabolism is actually going to be fired up and be able to burn. The less muscle you have, the less calories your body burns at a rest. The more muscle you have, the more calories your body burns at a rest just by doing nothing. So muscle really is the key.
All right. Well, we're gonna get in there, lift something heavy. We got it. What are the most common causes of weight fluctuation, and what's the best way to manage those fluctuations?
Yeah. So the two biggest drivers are carbs and sodium. When you eat carbs, um, your body stores them as glycogen in your muscles and in your liver. And for every gram of glycogen your body stores, you store about 3 grams of water alongside it. And so when someone has pasta for dinner and wakes up 3 pounds heavier, no, they did not magically gain 3 pounds of fat overnight. They just filled the tank with glycogen and water. On the flip side, when someone cuts carbs, they dump that water and suddenly the scale drops like magic. And that's why low carb diets seem so powerful in their very first week, but it's mostly water, it's not fat. This is why I tell clients the scale measures weight, not progress. Your progress is body fat percentage, how your clothes fit, your energy levels, your strength. If the scale goes up after sushi night, it's not failure. It's just your body holding on to water like a sponge. So if you think of carbs as a sponge system, you fill it up, it holds water. You squeeze it out, it lets water go. The fat loss happens underneath quietly, steadily, regardless of the day-to-day scale noise. Now, sodium kind of works in the same way. It influences how much water your body holds. So, sodium is essential for us, right? We need it for muscle contractions, we need it for nerve signaling and fluid balance. And without it, your body literally cannot function. The problem isn't sodium itself, it's when people overdo it, like a big sushi night with soy sauce or salty restaurant food. Excess sodium pulls more water into your tissues, which can cause the temporary jump on the scale and sometimes even puffiness in right your hands and in your face. So carbs and sodium aren't bad. They just shift water around and the scale is reflecting water movement, not fat gain. And that's why I always remind clients constantly that the scale shows weight, not fat loss progress. So managing it is the fun part. So once you understand that water is what's causing the ups and downs, you can actually use water manipulation to your advantage. This is something I actually teach inside my nutrition program. So it's not about doing anything extreme. Instead, it's about strategic water management. By drinking more water, you actually flush excess water out. I know that that sounds completely backwards, but the body holds water even when it feels deprived, kind of like a camel storing reserves. When you hydrate well, your body relaxes and lets it go. So we use higher water intake paired with consistent, steady sodium intake to shed that extra water retention in just a day or two, especially after a high carb or high salt meal. So if a client wakes up on Monday panicking because the scale is up after a weekend out, we don't freak out. We simply reset, hydrate in what I call the water pyramid. And by Wednesday, the scale usually corrects itself. It's not magic, it's actually physiology. And when clients see how quickly water weight can be managed, it takes away the fear of daily fluctuations and helps keep them focused on the true fat loss progress that's happening underneath.
Yeah, that's a struggle of mine. I sit here behind this desk from like 6, 7 in the morning sometimes until it's 4:30 my time, so 6 p.m. and I don't get enough water in. Who here struggles with that? Say I, me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know if you have any hacks or tips. I used to have this water bottle. It was called a hydrate water bottle that would bizz and beep and light up to remind me to drink water.
Yeah.
But gosh, I struggle with
So
it.
when my biggest hack with that, and I actually do this myself because like you, on my busiest days where I'm meeting with all of my nutrition clients, I'll start at 7 o'clock in the morning and I won't stop until 7 o'clock at night. And I'm on back to back meetings and constantly talking. So I play a drinking game with myself. So every time I say the word water or my client says the word water, I have to take a sip. And I actually have a lot of my clients do this too. So I have one that's a principal, and I was like, play it with your office. Anytime somebody says the word student, take a drink. And so they started doing that and it got their water up. So if there's something in your, in your daily life, or a word that is constantly said around your office or your house, that play the game. It's always a good idea too to kind of pair together food and water. So if you're sitting down and eating, make sure that you have a full glass of water there and have the goal of finishing the water, before you're done eating.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'm afraid of using the restroom. Like, God forbid I'm gonna call. I've had all the water and I have to get, but I can do better. So speaking of camel, I have to, that's one area I'm gonna focus on next week and the rest of this week. Um, I also know there's a lot of people on peptides here, and peptides cause water retention or your ability to be able to sense hydration. Like when you're on GLP-1s, you have to remind yourself to drink water. You forget a lot of
Yeah.
time. Can you speak to that? People who are on peptides or GLPs, and whether it's for fat loss or hydration, or do you have any advice around that specifically?
Yeah. So it does disrupt like our thirst cues, but water is essential for life, right? So we can only live 3 days without water, but we can go so much longer without food. And like majority of our body is actually made up of water, right? Our organs, our blood, everything actually needs it. And so it is so important, not just for fat loss, not just for flushing toxins out of your body, but just to make sure all of your organs are functioning correctly. It is one of those things that you have to prioritize. And so if you're having trouble remembering to drink water or just to get it in, set a timer, set a reminder, set an alarm, or set an alarm for yourself to go off every hour. I know that that's annoying, but eventually you will kind of get used to it, and hopefully you'll start to remember to actually get that in. Because a lot of the peptides, for example, like glutathione, that is actually used to help flush out toxicity, um, you're going to need, your body still needs water in order to be able to process that.
Now, taking all this in, what daily non-negotiables do you recommend to keep fat loss sustainable?
Daily non-negotiables, there's definitely at least two that I recommend, and that is protein intake and water. Um, and then I guess sleep as well. So 7 to 8 hours of sleep every single night is definitely something that needs to be a non-negotiable as well. So protein intake, making sure that you're keeping that up, keeping your hydration up, drinking lots of water, and then sleep.
Yeah, we get a lot of individuals who are like, I'm stalling in my weight loss. I don't know what happened. I was doing so great. Why don't you talk to us about that? What's happening? What is a stall, a weight loss stall?
So a, a lot of the times it's just your body hits a plateau, and that's completely normal. Our bodies are really smart and they're made to adapt. And so if we keep doing the exact same thing and it was working really well, and all of a sudden it's not working any well, or it's not working well anymore, that's just the adaptation process. It's kind of like a workout, right? When you first start a workout, it's hard. You're sore. Your body is feeling it. But then eventually, if you keep going and you keep doing it, the same workout 2 months down the road feels easy. It's not that the workout got easier, it's that you got stronger. So your body adapts to nutrition habits as well, and lifestyle habits. And so when you hit a plateau, you need to think, okay, what can I step up? What can I do next? And maybe it's eating a little more protein. Maybe it's drinking a little more water. Maybe it's a few more steps in the day. Maybe it's adding weights and lifting a little bit heavier to your workout load. Little tiny tweaks is really all that it needs in order to break that plateau.
I love that. There was a question that came in. I want to read. It says, can you speak to the difference of Celtic or Himalayan salt versus table salt? And can you over salt with is it Celtic or Celtic? I'm sorry. And Himalayan, or are they just beneficial?
So you can't, that's a really good question. So I'm going to first answer like the difference, right? Table salt is mainly chemicals. It's made in a lab, right? It's not necessarily it's real. Where Celtic and Himalayan sea salt are mined from the earth, and the benefits that they have is that they actually contain trace minerals in them. So pink Himalayan sea salt has about 87 different trace minerals that our body actually needs. The difference between Celtic and Himalayan is Celtic sea salt actually has a higher moisture point. So, can you over salt your food? The answer is yes. Um, your sodium content really, or your daily sodium intake needs really needs to be based individually, right? Do you have high blood pressure, right? Probably need to keep your sodium intake a little down. Do you live in a hot environment, right? If you live in a hot environment, you actually need more sodium. Do you live in high elevation? You actually need more sodium than somebody that lives in a lower elevation. So the salt needs are based on each individual. However, once you start getting in the exact same amount of sodium every single day, your body gets used to it. And so once you maintain consistency, so not only is consistency with food intake important, but consistency with salt intake is just as important, because your body will adapt, and eventually the sodium that you intake every day will no longer play with the scale and give those weight fluctuations that normally happen. So if one day you get in 1,200 milligrams of sodium, but the next day you get in 6,000 milligrams of sodium, yeah, that's going to play with the scale big time. But if every single day you get 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, your body adjusts, and it no longer will cause those major weight fluctuations anymore on the scale.
Yeah, your body kind of likes stability and consistency, doesn't it? It just likes it. It likes that.
Yeah.
It doesn't like to go up and down. Now, can you talk to us why patients who are on GLP-1, GIPs should take electrolytes, or what's the whole hype around electrolytes? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So the reason why it's important is because you're eating less. Typically, you're eating less. A lot of the times we are losing more moisture or more hydration out of our bodies. So it's trying to help bind the hydration to you. So electrolytes, it's not just sodium, right? It's sodium, magnesium, and potassium. And you actually need all three to help balance your water. So sodium helps, like I talked about before, it binds hydration too, where potassium actually helps with the keeping that water balanced. So electrolytes are necessary for everybody, whether you're on a GLP-1 or not. You really should make sure that you're getting in adequate amounts of electrolytes and your trace minerals every single day. But essentially, it's just, with a lower food intake and potentially extra water loss, especially wrapped around loss in potassium. Because when you lose weight, a lot of the times, like we talked about before, a lot of it is water weight at first. And when you lose a lot of water weight, your body flushes out a lot of potassium that goes with it. And so in order to keep you feeling good and healthy, our blood needs these, for like muscle contractions, for nerve signaling. So it's really important that we make sure that we get these in, especially when we have a lower caloric intake.
Are there signs or symptoms of electrolyte fluctuations? Do you get
Mhm.
cramps more often? Are you more foggy brained? What are the symptoms
All
around?
of the above. So you can get leg cramps, you can get, like side cramps, you can get foggy brained. One of the main things that we see is postural hypotension. So getting dizzy and lightheaded going from a sit to a stand or a stand to a sit. So all of that is key indicators that you are low on electrolytes and low on hydration. Another thing is a headache. Headaches are very, we always chalk them up to maybe like stress or, like but a lot of it, that is telling you right there, it's the very first thing you should look at is, am I dehydrated? Do I need electrolytes when we get that headache? And one of the things that I tell my clients to do whenever they kind of feel this way is take a quarter teaspoon of pink Himalayan sea salt, put it in a shot glass of water, fill it up with water, mix it around, and take a saltwater shot. Typically, their headache and all of these symptoms will subside within 5 minutes or less.
That is good to know. I just want to get through the questions as we go along, as they're coming in. And if you guys have questions, please put it in the chat. We'll get to it. How heavy is heavy when you refer to lifting heavy weights, where we can lift only 5 reps, 2 sets, for example? Can you answer that, Briar? Or
It really is just going to depend on the person and how you've and how what you've been doing before, how you've been, if you're training with a progressive overload. Um, so if you always want to start out with something that you're more comfortable with, and then you're always going to want to work to be able to lift heavier. So if you're, let's say, deadlifting just a 45-pound Olympic bar, as soon as that feels easy, start adding on 5 pounds at a time. Um, you know, uh, Personally, with me, I'm 5'4". I'm like 120 pounds. But when I get into the gym, I deadlift 185 and all the way up to 215 easy. And so you just have to work up and get there. So I can't really answer that just because it's just one of those things where you have to make sure that you're training, you have to do it safely, and you have to gradually build to where you are lifting a little bit heavier, because you can't just go into the gym and be like, oh, she said I need to lift 200 pounds. And when you haven't been training up to it. So it's something you have to work up to and train up to. But as soon as it gets easy, put 5 more pounds on. If that was easy too, fine, put 10, put another 25-pound plate on there. But it's something, again, you have to work up to.
Briar, and I don't know if you would know or if you recommend this to your clients and or you coach certain clients around this, but do you recommend tesamorelin, ipamorelin? Do you recommend any peptides when it comes to fat loss for your clients?
Yeah, so I actually do suggest the tesamorelin and ipamorelin, sorry, to clients. And some clients, again, GLP-1. Let's see, what else do I recommend? I recommend a lot of glutathione, just for the detoxification purposes. And I think,
NAD is a good one too for fat loss specifically when you pair it with the GLPs. I don't know if that's something you recommend. No?
which one?
NAD.
NAD? Yes, NAD. Yes, thank you. So there are some clients that maybe a majority of them just want to, glutathione, NAD, and then that's really it. But I do have a few clients that are on tesamorelin, and they're getting actually really great results from it, especially pairing it with strength training.
Yeah, the only downside is the water retention with Tessa ipamorelin. And if you are combining it with ipamorelin, there's a little bit of a spike in hunger, which might not be a bad thing. Because when you're on semi or the GLP-1 GIPs, your sense of hunger goes down, right? You feel less hunger. So I think it might not be so bad, but you could always pair it with a GLP-1 if necessary. But we're looking at bringing just tesamorelin out by itself for individuals
Oh,
who
nice.
experience that little spike in hunger. Now, these past couple days while we were in the Dominican Republic, we talked a lot about mindset, right? And that making that mindset shift. And I remember that was critical when I made the decision of I'm going to lose the weight when I was at 235 pounds. I'm going to lose the weight. Mindset was almost everything. Can you talk to us a little about the mindset shifts that you need to make when it comes to fat loss? And how do you coach your clients through that?
Yeah, so mindset is everything because fat loss is rarely a straight line. So people plateau, they fluctuate, they slip up. And without the right mindset, they really do spiral, right? One off plan meal turns into a lost weekend, which turns into giving up altogether. I coach clients to see fat loss as a process, not an event. It's not about being perfect today, it's about stacking the small wins over time. And this is also where having a nutritionist in your corner makes a huge difference, because weekly check ins give accountability and structure and a reality check when motivation does slip. On their own, people tend to overreact to the scale and they get frustrated or they talk themselves out of progress. I've seen this so many times where somebody is just so close and they talk themselves out of progress. But with the guidance, we can really reframe these setbacks and adjust the plan and really keep the momentum going. Clients stay, more plugged into coaching because we help to keep up that positive mindset, and motivation at that time, at that point, becomes less about willpower and more about confidence, because they know that even on tough weeks, they're still going to move forward. We teach clients that, like I said, setbacks aren't failures, they're just feedback, right? Every slip up is really a chance to learn what triggered it, so we can build a strategy for next time. Instead of beating themselves up for having cake at a birthday, right? We ask, like, okay, what led to that choice? Did you get enough protein in earlier that day? Did stress play a role, or emotion play a role? So we zoom out and we look at the bigger picture, because fat loss isn't decided by one meal or even by one weekend. It's patterns that you repeat most often. I remind clients that consistency compounds like interest in a bank account, right? One withdrawal doesn't bankrupt you, but giving up on a process does. And, honestly, a big part of my job is helping people drop that all or nothing mindset. Progress is messy. You don't fail until you quit. And as long as we're still in the game, we can always course correct. So really the biggest mindset shift that people really need to make is, I'm on a diet, is going from, like, I'm on a diet to, this is how I live. That short-term dieters, like, chase the finish line, where long-term success actually means, like, building habits that you can maintain forever, like protein intake, strength training, daily movement. Once a client stops chasing those quick fixes, fat loss becomes freedom instead of punishment. And it's the scale is really that noisiest metric that we do have, because of the carbs and the sodium and water fluctuations. So teaching clients to reflect on strength in the gym, or inches lost, or how clothing is fitting, or their energy levels, or even their confidence, that really, really, really helps.
I know you briefly touched on this, but can you elaborate more on why stress causes more fat retention and
Mhm.
um, the role stress, cortisol, and fat play?
Yeah. So, okay. So stress and this all kind of goes into play with sleep as well. So one single night of bad sleep will increase your ghrelin, and it'll also decrease your leptin. So ghrelin is the hunger hormone, and leptin is the hormone that signals to your body that you're full. So once you spike ghrelin and you decrease your leptin, you wake up the next morning and everything kind of feels like a snack, right? You just want to kind of eat everything in sight. Now, when you get a bad sleep, that also puts your body under stress, right? And that's even more stress from day-to-day life, whether you have kids or a spouse or work, and the traffic jam that you get stuck in, trying to get from one place to another. So all of those combined, right? Hunger is up, your hunger or your fullness cues are down. Now we add cortisol into the mix, and cortisol is just a fat store. Once those cortisol levels go up, your body is in fat storage mode, and especially around the belly. That's where cortisol likes to put all of its fun little gifts that it likes to leave us. And so it all plays such a huge role. And a lot of people, they think, oh my gosh, like I messed up, or my meal plan's not working, or my efforts are no longer working. And when really maybe behind the scenes, their sleep and their stress routines are kind of undermining their progress in a way. But all of those play such a big factor.
Mm. Now, once fat loss goals are reached, what strategies help ensure people maintain results for the long term?
Yeah. So shifting your mindset from dieting to lifestyle, um, which can definitely take time. In my program, we actually walk our clients through what we call the reverse dieting process. So we slowly increase calories back up to maintenance while keeping protein intake high and strength training consistent. And this actually restores energy and supports metabolism and gives the body permission to stabilize at this new weight. So, one of the biggest mistakes people actually make is continuing to eat like they're in a caloric deficit after they've already hit their goal. That might sound like you're disciplined, but in the long term, it can actually backfire on you. Keeping your body in a deficit for too long can slow your metabolism. It disrupts your hormones. It can make it harder to maintain your results. So we need to focus on getting out of that mindset of, okay, I'm on a diet, to, okay, I've reached my goal, now what's next? Because there has to be something after that diet. You have to get yourself back up to maintenance calories because your body can't survive and eat like that forever. Most importantly, we really focus on identity with clients. So we help them stop saying, I'm trying to lose weight, and start saying, I'm a healthy person now. And that mindset shift locks results in for life. So keeping your protein up, keeping your strength training, keeping water a priority, sleeping, knowing that it's okay to take a rest day off from the gym. So many people think that they have to hit the gym every single day. You don't. Your body actually recovers and your muscles grow and repair when you rest. So every single time you go and you work out, you're basically tearing and ripping your muscle fibers. So after a workout, picture a plate of ground beef, right? Uncooked ground beef. It's just kind of crumbly, right? That's what your muscles look like after a workout. Now, if you give your body a couple of days and you actually let, you get in plenty of protein, those amino acids are going to actually repair those muscles. Now, a few days later, after you've worked out, now your muscle actually looks like a nice prime steak, right? So rest is super, super important. So that mindset shift, getting your calories back up to a maintenance, or maybe you completely shift. Okay, now I lost the weight. Now I want to actually build muscle and work towards fitness nutrition, because that's totally different than weight loss nutrition. So hydration, sleep, all of those are things that need to be done just to maintain. And it's not just to maintain fat loss or to maintain the goal, but that's a pretty good life right there. That's going to lead to longevity, which is what we all want, right? We just don't want to be skinny. We want to feel better and we want to live longer. We want to see our kids grow up and we want to see our grandkids get married. And we don't want to be the youngest person in the nursing home. We want to actually maintain our independence. And all of these things are going to give that independence back to you, and you can maintain it for longer.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it full circle. Thank you. Thank you. Before we wrap up, are there any last words? And if anyone wants to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I think Brenda is going to link my website down below. But I can also send my contact information here in the chat. But my personal number, if you would like to write this down, is 209-675-5053. Yes, that is a California number. I am now living in Texas, but I am originally from California. So again, that was 209-675-5053. Or you can also email me at FITTBRA@gmail.com. So that's FITTBRA@gmail.com. No, it is not a sports bra company. BRA is just my initials.
Oh, well, thank you For elaborating. Well, thank you all so much. Briar, thank you for this educational series and being on and educating our community. This is what makes us so powerful. It's having these conversations and bringing the community together once a week. So thank you for being part of our story and this journey. And thank you, every single one of you, for tuning in and listening. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, everyone. Take care.